So it's certainly been a weekend for breaking streaks. Lewis Hamilton had to wait 2.5 years to win an F1 race. Alex Bowman broke an 80-race dry spell to win at NASCAR in Chicago this past weekend. And in IndyCar, for the first time in nearly 2 years, Pato O'Ward actually took the checkered flag. And this time, he gets to keep it. Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Although it's crazy that, technically it's the opposite of the Regan Smith trope. He gets to keep the flag, and this time he gets to take it.
Yeah, it doesn't really work now that you mention it like that. But
it's like Big Dave Bautista, weapons are not only welcome, they're allowed vibes.
Very much so. Welcome to episode 531 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison. Glad you could join us. And in the second half of this doubleheader, we're going to be talking about IndyCar's Mid-Ohio 200. The first race in the second half, literally, the second half of this IndyCar season. And the first ever with hybrid power, a historic moment for IndyCar. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the meantime. But in the land of the Motorsport 101 extended universe, a certain co-host of mine is a big Pato O'Ward guy. So you can imagine how smug Mr. RJ O'Connell is currently feeling right now, that his man's won a race, clean as a whistle, straight up, didn't have to wait 6 weeks for a disqualification. You got a dub. How's it feel, big man?
I mean, I would have gotten a dub either way. We got two of the very best dueling it out for 85 laps, and people wanted to tell me that this was an awful, awful race. I'm sorry. What race did y'all watch where you got to see Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou slug it out for an entire race and tell me, oh, this is so boring? And I get it. Not a lot happened behind them, but you live for races like this.
It's a strange one.
Scott Dixon fans that watch this.
You're probably not wrong. Scott Dixon is a very popular man, but it is. I mean, I can't lie to you. I did give it a 5 out of 10 on the website's review. I thought it was an average race, but you could probably give it an extra couple of points if you the sort of fan that wants a lead battle for the win the whole way, because that's exactly what we got. It was a clean, caution-free 85 lap ding dong where arguably two of the 5 best IndyCar drivers in the world went toe-to-toe the entire way, and Pato O'Ward eventually won by half a second. That's a good day at the office. I will admit the problem was probably behind, where we had very little actual action and no strategic variance that was worth it, unfortunately. But I can't, in good faith, call that race bad by any stretch. So yeah, we'll talk about that lead battle in a little bit more detail very shortly. We'll talk about the hybrid unit itself and the reason why we joked about Scott Dixon, because he got boned on this one. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And I would like to go more than a week without talking about McLaren in a goddamn podcast, but unfortunately, Zach has given me no choice for the 4th week in a row. Thanks, Zach. I really appreciate it.
Oh, don't even put on the Zach. You know deep down, you were just like, Zach Brown, that's my guy, because he's giving me what I want.
I can say, #Lundgaard is free. We won! We won! Christian Lundgaard got a better seat. It's the one seat I was hoping he wasn't going to be in, but it's an improvement. We'll take it. Yes. The free Lundgaard campaign was a Roman success. You'll love to see it. We'll talk about that. What do you mean it's at Alex Rossi's expense? Okay.
Remember, getting roasted is getting posted. Thanks, Machiavelli.
Indeed, it is indeed. We'll talk a little bit about that as well in the back half of the show as well, because McLaren are going driver rejigging yet again. Stop me if you've had
season this time, though.
Not really, no. I guess that is a plus. So we'll get into all of that in the next 40 minutes or so. Places you can find us in the meantime, real quick. We are on youtube.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter, motorsport_101. If you'd like to follow us personally, you can at Dre Harrison101, at RJ O'Connell, and at CBuckley917. You can check us out on our website, motorsport101.com, where you've got extra content, including full written reviews from me on all 3 races this weekend. IndyCar's Mid-Ohio 200, Formula One's British Grand Prix, and the MotoGP German Grand Prix as well. All of those reviews on the website as well. And if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our content. You can upgrade to the $10 level to get access to the Supporters Club, where you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded. Feel free to join us when we recorded a more, shall we say, friendly time slot. It's 11:35 p.m. here in the UK, so today is not that day.
Yeah,
but,
as of right now, a lot of England is like still on the ceiling after that Ollie Watkins goal.
Oh, yeah. Me being one of them. I'm currently pre-ordering a Stone Cold Palmer England jersey as we speak, which is the first time I've ever endorsed anything from Chelsea.
Remember, folks, we still do not know how the final has gone by the time this episode is being recorded. Spain could win. England could win. A lot of people could be happy, or nobody could be happy. Who knows?
Who knows? It's part of the fun. We'll see how we go. Let's get into IndyCar, and we'll talk about the Mid-Ohio 200 in more detail right after this.
I actually want to clarify, this is the Honda Indy 200 in Mid-Ohio, presented by the all-new 2025 Civic Hybrid. But yes, as we said at the top, if you're a believer in luck, this was a weekend for combo breakers to end long droughts. Alex Bowman, 80-race dry spell, wound up Chicago. Lewis Hamilton, the score was 945 to 104 Grand Prix victories. For Pato O'Ward, it had been 716 days since the last time he took the checkered flag to win an IndyCar race. That was some very careful wording, because he did win a race earlier this year. An inherited win at St. Petersburg, a race where he led no laps, because he was second behind Joseph Newgarden, who won the race and then he didn't. But before then, you have to go back to Iowa 2022, which ironically was a race that Joseph Newgarden dominated, but he did not get any of the credit for win because his suspension collapsed and crashed out. Pato O'Ward won that day, and today, Pato O'Ward was the winner at Mid-Ohio, and via a narrow half-second win with Alex Palou after a tense battle using the lap traffic as a guard to pick his way through. Pato took the victory via Mid-Ohio, and not just the end of a long winless drought for him, the end of a unacceptably long winless drought for Arrow McLaren IndyCar team, who should be expected to compete for wins perennially, and they didn't win it all last year. Now they have. I thought the lead battle was really fun. And the one thing that I liked about this is that we temporarily paused one of the big Pato O'Ward tropes, that he can't manage his tires. The race was defined by Pato getting more out of the red, softer alternate tires in the middle stint than Alex Palou could. Palou was a rocket on the harder black sidewall primary tires. We saw that all throughout the first stint, where he was basically just, it's him and O'Ward. He's the only two drivers in any sort of remote zip code. It was a beating. But then, especially as the second stint started rolling in, Pato just found more and more pace out of the red tires, and a gap that was about 7 seconds before the first round of pit stops, it closed down to like nothing. And it basically, the race got decided on the fine margins. You can argue like Ganassi should have pitted Palou first. You can argue that a momentary hesitation of the clutch as Palou was peeling out the pits decided it. But would it have been that close if Palou didn't get the most out of those red sidewall tires? And Palou was still fast once he was back in black sidewall tires to finish the race, but And Ohio is a tough place to pass on, and sometimes traffic can work in your favor, and sometimes it can absolutely ruin your day. And ultimately, it just wasn't enough for Palou to get back past O'Ward, who, can I just say, he really needed this. I don't know if it's going to be in time to mount any sort of anything close to a title challenge. There are 8 races left this season. I wouldn't entirely rule it out because Pato O'Ward is one of the strongest oval drivers in the field. And as we talked about, there are a lot of ovals to close out this season.
We got 6 of them to close out the year, and 2 of them are this weekend at Iowa's doubleheader.
But it's still 70 points. And the thing about Alex Palou is that, oh, woe is him. His oval attribute is only a 92 or a 93 instead of a 97 to 99. How awful. I don't think you're getting that many points off of it unless he just has a terrible day over the next 8 weeks. And
yeah, you summed it up pretty well. I didn't need to really say anything on top of that. I mean, this was a tale of 2 races. It was a tale of 2 tire compounds. Alex Palou was incredible the first stint. He had a 6-second lead into the first round of pit stops over Pato. The next man was David Malukas in third, and he was 14 seconds back in that stint. It was complete domination by Palou, and I'm thinking, oh god, he's going to run away with this again like he did in Mid-Ohio last year. The only thing that could stop him back then was a lap down Benjamin Peterson, and I thought was going to run away with it, but Pato came back at him in that second. I don't know where this narrative came from that Pato O'Ward is a tire butcher, but that's maybe because I'm not as in-depth in tune of IndyCar on social media, because I never bought into that narrative with Pato. But I'm glad you made the point, because I was going to, because this feels long overdue for Pato O'Ward. I mean that
absolutely is,
and I mean that in a nice way, because he is that good. And when he is, and when I looked at his results again, I looked at his IndyCar career, and I've sat here and I've gone, okay, you're third in the championship now. You're 70 points off the top. Great. You were this guy 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's always had me concerned about Pato, is that he keeps hitting a ceiling. And 2021 was the year he got closest to winning the title. He took it to the final round at Long Beach.
Yeah, it wasn't just his breakout party, it was Arrow McLaren SP's party, because at that time, we didn't really see them as more than just Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports with fancier branding and a bigger budget.
Exactly.
That was a point where they proved, like, hey, they could, if not replace one of the big 3, then at least make it a big 4, or at least make the argument that Andretti has made a second tier 2 behind Penske and Ganassi, which has been more the case. It's not that McLaren has taken steps forward as an entire team. It's more like Andretti's fallen off while Penske and Ganassi have just continued to accelerate, but I digress.
Yeah.
2023 was weird because the first 2 races, he came as close as you could get to winning one of those 2. He has a very weird spring where he loses his head at Long Beach, he loses his head at the 500, he loses his head at Detroit. And then for the rest of the season, he's just been very, very steady and does about everything you can do except win a race the rest of the year.
I still found it startling he went winless last year. He finished in second 6 times. And he just didn't win one. And I wrote in my season review on the website last year that I thought, well, Pato, I wanted him to be the guy to stop. Because the funny thing is, right, you look at his 5 seasons in IndyCar so far, right? 2 of his first 4 years, in fact, 3. He has 3 seasons where his point total ends in 480 something. So he's had 3 almost identical seasons on points. And I've sat here and I've gone, if you can convert one of these into a 600-point season, you can probably win the championship. You're not far away. Clearly, he's not far away. And like there's a year he has 480 something and he's 7th, and that's only because somehow 6 dudes went over 500 that year. It was a freakish season by IndyCar standards. the point I'm getting at here is that I want Pato to kick on. I actually want him to actually have a proper bona fide title campaign for the first time in 4 years. And he's more than good enough to be able to do that, and McLaren can't use resources as an excuse anymore. They've been around for 4 years, and they clearly have a package that can win races. We've seen it at the 500. We saw it at St. Petersburg. We saw it a week earlier at Laguna Seca when Alex Rossi was in a really good position to win the Laguna Seca until Luca Giotto's caution came out. McLaren are not incapable of winning. And this year, for most of this year, Andretti's more like a winning team this year than McLaren has. They've got their own set of issues to a degree, but
the drought continues for Colton Herta.
But at least Colton Herta's in the top 5 in the championship, and Carl Kirkwood's not far away either. Andretti's got 2 minutes in the championship.
Curtis 4th. Marcus Ericsson had another weekend where you just think, maybe the month of May was just an aberration. You can throw that away.
Yeah, it's just, I speak from a place of frustration only because I know how good Pato O'Ward can be. And I'm a believer that he is a sensational racing driver. Oh. I just wish this is only his 5th win in IndyCar in total. And I'm sitting there going, how? You're so good. And I just want him to convert one of these seasons into something that resembles a title push. And this is, for me, his best chance to do that since 2021, and he's got 6 ovals coming up between now and the end of the year, and he's the only oval guy that can keep Joseph Newgarden honest on a consistent basis. Absolutely.
We know Iowa's going to have a much different character because Iowa Speedway had a partial repave through some corners. I'm not thinking that this is going to somehow magically turn Team Penske into Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan on short ovals.
Yeah.
But could change things, could make track position all the more important, particularly if you don't know this is going to turn it into a one-groove race or not. Be best if Pato O'Ward qualifies up at the front, doesn't botch any pit stops, but you get it. Pato O'Ward is that dude. And I've long been a believer in his talents. I've always felt like it's been frustrating at times. If you just wait, good things are just around the corner. If he ever wins an Indianapolis 500 anytime soon, the roof is going to come off the place. There's no 100%, doubt about it.
Because he is uber popular. For me, he's the most popular driver in the series now. He's got fans the world over, however you choose to identify, young and old. He's got a bucket load of fans. Mexico loves him. And we all know Mexico gets behind their own, unlike any other sporting country you'll ever see. Like I mentioned,
Mexico fucks with anybody in IndyCar more than America does. Absolutely. I'm going to be real with you.
Yeah, it's like we're saying with Checo. No matter where you go, in every F1 Grand Prix, you will always see a Mexican flag somewhere. Guaranteed. No matter where you are in the world, you will see a Mexican flag somewhere. The people there love Checo, and rightly so. And if you're Alex Palou, oh no, you've only extended your championship lead to 47 points. What a shame.
Will Power was fine, but he wasn't Will Power, and he couldn't move up from 15th to 11th it's fine, but it's not great.
And unfortunately for another one of his title rivals, it was an even worse day than that. We'll get into that in just a moment here, because it was also a historic race for IndyCar in total. It was their first on hybrid power, and it turns out they're using super-capacitor technology to make this work, with a full charge draining the battery in just 4.5 seconds for 60 extra horsepower. Alongside push to pass, it means the cars can peak now at over 800 bhp for the first time in over 20 years. But it had a tough start, with Scott Dixon's system failing and killing his car before the race had even started, putting him 71 points now behind Palou in the standings. What did we make of IndyCar's debut? Now, I'll tell you how I feel about this. First of all, not a good look that you struck down a title contender right off the bat. It's good you probably had the other 26 cars finish without too many issues.
Yeah, because I think when when things were going rough during the testing period, that was the end result of all this pushing back. We were thinking, well, geez, if they roll them out this soon, who's to say that like half the field's not going to break down? And thankfully, we didn't get like a rash of like a dozen hybrid failures. Thank goodness. It just so happens that the one person who was unlucky enough to have that happen was the main title contender and also one of the sport's most successful drivers, done pretty much who dominates Mid-Ohio.
Yeah.
Traditionally.
It's not a great look, but it was only one car. I would also have a little bit of niggling concerns about the clutch, because there was multiple cars that seemingly were either affected by a bit of a dodgy clutch, because David Malukas was one of them. He was running third and they ended up 12th because of clutch issues. And Joseph Newgarden had apparently a software glitch on his car, which led to having two drive.
Well, isn't it ironic, don't you think?
Two drive-through penalties because of software glitches that were messing with his pit lane limiter, and that pretty much ruined his day. He was running 11th, he went down to 25th.
The place where he ran off was a left turn, and of course, the thing that made him go too fast in the pits was a software glitch that made him go too fast when he shouldn't have. Ha 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 ha.
He's having a great season, isn't he, RJ? he's 10th. Joseph Newgarden is 10th in the standings right now. 10th? Yeah. What is going on?
It's another one of those seasons where it's just like, other than some fleeting moments, the start hasn't been good enough.
Nope.
And now you're banking on a late surge in the points that you know is going to come too late.
Again, and it's not ideal at all. I mean, my overall thoughts on this is, I can't lie to you, RJ, and please tell me if I'm being harsh here, but when this got unveiled and I watched it in practice for the first time, my first thought was, is this it? Because I was just sitting here going, super-capacitors? And even I know from all my conversations in sports cars with Mr. Cameron Buckley, even I know that motorsport has generally leaned away from supercapacitors and have done so for the best part of a decade.
Yeah. For reference, the Toyota GR010 hybrid, its electric motor runs on lithium-ion batteries. And why did I mention this car? Because that has been the gold standard of the hypercar class for basically the last year and a half or so, since we got proper hypercar competition. Same thing in the Ferrari 499P, where now it is all battery driven. Same with every LMDH format car, and for that it's working. And I'm glad that they got here to this point. I'm glad that, other than for Scott Dixon, it was a mostly trouble-free run once we actually got down to racing. Did make an immediate difference, like we all thought it would, for better and certainly for worse, because it didn't really change the complexion of the racing. Like, for some people, it's just like, good. It didn't change the complexion of the racing. I was worried that it was going to drastically alter the complexion of the racing. I don't know,
man.
It feels very benign. I'm glad they finally ended up making this move, but it does feel very benign right now. But I'm really curious to see what happens when we come to our first oval track in Iowa.
That'll be interesting, because the rejet obviously will not be as strong on an oval, but we'll have to see how that goes. I personally can't help but shake the feeling of a 60 horsepower extra boost for 4.5 seconds is worse pound for pound than an F1 KERS unit was in 09. And I'm not. It lines up with what a lot of people have been criticizing IndyCar for years, and that's why haven't we gotten a new car yet? And it's antiquated technology by motorsport standards in an antiquated car and chassis and engine at this point, and it's that's what worries me, because it's just not a good look for where this series is from a technological standpoint. You're the last major series to have hybrid power in your car at this point. This was already 2.5 years delayed, and when it finally gets here, it's such a marginal difference, which I'm sure will get better in time as development comes in and teams will start running their tricks with it. It will inevitably get better. It will inevitably get better, but from a basic standpoint, this is 10-year-old tech. That's just not great. It just makes me feel like what are we doing here? It feels like we're almost wasting our time with it being like this, because that's the biggest capacity unit that these cars could allow for their size. And
because you are not developing the car around the hybrid system, you're developing the hybrid system around the car. It's tiny. Like I've seen some of the hybrid kits in modern prototypes. Like they're much bigger than this. Also, the television graphics on the international feed, like I like pretty lights, but they are also very confusing to have red for deployment and green for recharge when my brain is telling me it should be the other way around.
Yeah, green means go. That's what we associate green lights with, and that's the regen button, because it means the car's braking. Look, they generally, graphically speaking, I think the onboard telemetry with the battery is fine. I wish they would swap the orange and the yellow around, because normally you associate orange with being a worse off color than yellow.
Yeah, we forgot how the rainbow works for a second.
Yeah, but that was fine besides that. But the whole regen and then deployment graphics on screen constantly flashing up on the tower, it was jarring. It was unnecessary. We should have had that with push to pass years ago. That would have been more interesting to me, and it's been used for regen instead. And then second of all, it's now happening so much, and it's going to happen in the same spots, because teams will figure out the most efficient place to use their
I'd say they figured it out like after all the practices. Like there are like set places where you know where to dump the button. It's out of the carousel going on to the back stretch.
Exactly. So, and you only had enough charge for 2 hits a lap. So, it got very predictable, almost like it was a pattern, and that doesn't come off well on TV. Not IndyCar's, it's not NBC's fault. It's just the way I can understand why they've done it. I just don't think it works.
You invested a lot into this. You want to get people excited about that, and if that comes in the form of a spiffy graphics package, you do what you can to get people talking about it. You do embed that in your mind. I can't disagree that it just, for the one sample we have, is just like, it's inconclusive, and I don't know if it's moving the needle that much. You do make the point that, like, now the cars can restart unassisted. Has the series hurt their own marketing hook by creating less chaos? And I'm just thinking, like, well, people are also getting annoyed about the number of, like, full course cautions and delayed full course cautions from cars stopped 50 feet off the side of the road. So maybe this could help fix that problem.
I don't know, because you're right, and I agree with you that I will happily take cars that can restart and less cautions in my racing in general, but there's a bunch of people that thrive on IndyCar being chaotic fail son as a racing series that are going to get a kick out of the fact that, a lot of people probably didn't want this Mid-Ohio race to be 85 laps of completely cautionless running. Let's be real here. We know that we know IndyCar's audience. They thrive for chaos.
I like the 2021 Indianapolis 500, and other than Graham Rahal losing a tire, it wasn't that much uncontrolled chaos.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
ultimately agree, but we know how this series gets down. It thrives on on claiming it has a better racing product than F1 does, and that's part of the reason why. So
yeah, better racing product, and that's not necessarily like we have better chaos than Formula One. Well, you usually think of just like cars being able to race close because they're spec cars that don't generate that much dirty air. They don't think of just like every race is a carnage fest. Some people do love train wreck television.
Yeah.
I love it, but I also just thought, but I know other people don't get down like that.
Exactly. Right.
Inconclusive. But Dre, now it's time for your victory lap because McLaren announced middle of last week that Alexander Rossi is leaving the number 7 car at the end of the season, and your boy Christian Lundgaard is leaving Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan to join McLaren to drive the number 7 car alongside Pato O'Ward and Nolan Siegel, I think, in 2025. McLaren told the press it was only willing to offer Rossi a 1-year deal and goal for it, and they wanted the youngest team in IndyCar, which it now has with an average age of 22. So just to lay this out for you, Pato O'Ward in the middle of next year will be 26 years old. Nolan Siegel in the middle of next year will still be 20. And Christian Rasmussen will be Christian Lundgaard. I should make a point about Rasmussen at some point. But Christian Lundgaard will be still only be 23 in the middle of next year.
So
go on,
23.
Generational Alexander Rossi hater. Generational free Christian Lundgaard guy. Take your victory lap.
I'm actually not going to, because I actually think it's very harsh that Alex Rossi's lost his job in the circumstances he has. I know, this is going to shock you, that me, the generational Alex Rossi hater, is now coming to his defense. But for me, and look, I am delighted for Christian. I've gassed the ever-loving shit out of that man for 2 years on this show because I think the man is a bona fide stud. And I'm really glad that someone in the big boy seats has recognized just how good he is, because he is. He's sensational. He is, for me, a borderline top 5 road and street course driver in the series. Absolutely. And he's going to a McLaren package that knows how to oval, and that is going to fix
that's the
a
other
huge
thing
hole
too.
in
It's
his
just
game.
like Christian Lundgaard is, I would say, about as strong as Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan's short oval package allows him to be.
Sure.
Like there's a big reason why Scott McLaughlin was able to thrive on ovals so much quicker than most other drivers, is because his foundation was built at Penske.
Yes.
That's a big advantage in his camp.
Yeah, it's a huge hole in Lundgaard's game that has a good chance of being patched out by going to McLaren, who have been one of the best oval runners in IndyCar for the last 2 or 3 years now.
And also, ironically, it's another Alpine Academy common success story. Not for McLaren.
Indeed. Again, we're doing this again. But
Oscar, Christian, when's Joe Guan Yu getting a McLaren reserve deal?
Soon. They're trying to crack that Chinese market still. No, I was going to say, like, this is, as a Lundgaard fan, on a basic level, I am delighted that he is getting the opportunity that he is, because he's more than deserving of it. And that's one of the maybe 8 or 10 seats in IndyCar you would actually want to be in as a driver. A package that can actually win races. Yeah, definitely. I'm delighted for him. However, this just screams to me, why wouldn't you have wanted him in the number 6 car this whole time instead, and not the 7 car? Because Alex Rossi has been really good this season. Alex Rossi was, until Mid-Ohio, only 10 points behind Pato O'Ward in the standings, and even after this race, he still finished 6th last weekend. That's still another really solid result, and he's been around the top 6 pretty much all year long this year. And
he's getting closer to peak Alexander Rossi from his time at Andretti.
Yeah, and this is
not there yet, but
the problem I have is how they've portrayed this to the media, and I don't know how much Nathan Brown is speaking for McLaren's behalf when he wrote the story about this move. Yeah, but the comments that were made in the Indianapolis Star article I read about this were eyebrow raising. In that, one, they think that Rossi might be too old, and he's 32. In IndyCar, that's the middle of most people's careers.
Will Power is having another career renaissance. He's 43.
Like, two of the three best drivers in this series are literally in their mid-40s, and we're all thinking that 32-year-old Alex Rossi is too old and can't cut it anymore. I find that baffling. The second thing I find baffling about it is that Alex Rossi was getting the 1-year deal treatment. I find that, again, baffling, that especially given Rossi's genuinely having a better season than he was last year, and was running Pato pretty clean and honest throughout this season so far, and yet you were only offering him 1-year contracts. Like, were you that keen to get rid of him? I find that confusing. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes, you can justify in the sense that just like, well, we brought out Alexander Rossi to win races, get us closer to championships and winning an Indianapolis 500 because, you know, we signed Alexander Rossi because of his pedigree at the Indianapolis 500, and he hasn't delivered in that regard. So why not take a chance on somebody younger? But I also get your point is that Alexander Rossi's been genuinely good this year. And like, of the options that are available, it ain't no guarantee that Rossi's going to find anything as good as McLaren. Like, you think he'd find himself back at Andretti Autosport somehow? Do you think Chip Ganassi would just like, I don't know, hey, we can afford to pay for another car to get Alexander Rossi a place on the grid?
This is the problem. Like, Alex Rossi has been better this year, but he's spent the last 4 years damaging his stock for not getting back to 2019 levels. And that's always been... If Zach had gone... Here's the thing, right? Zach talks out of both sides of his mouth. And the reason Alex...
Oh, honey, we've been new.
We knew, and we all knew this already, right? But let's put it to you this way, right? If you went to the media and said, we hired Alex Rossi to be a title contender, a 500 challenger, and another bullet in the chamber on the elite end of the team and scale, then and he's not delivered in that aspect, fine. I could certainly come over a more plausible argument for that than saying he's just too old to be here anymore. However, if that was the case, why did you try and sign Alex Palou last year then?
Because Alex Palou's champion.
This is the point. It's like, oh, well, you know, like, oh, we want Alex Rossi to be that guy, but then you clearly didn't want him to be that guy because you signed him the same year you were trying to sign Alex Palou, which says to me you always looked at Rossi as a number 3 option or a number 2 option at best, which, again, makes it all the more confusing that this is the first year you've had him at McLaren where he's looking like a decent number 2 option, and you've taken a gamble on Nolan Siegel. This would be the ideal time to have an experienced veteran on the grid who can bring the car home in solid results, and you don't have to rely on Nolan Siegel being a top 10 guy immediately.
It's clear that they now see Pato O'Ward as that guy. They see him as having enough miles on the tread. We're like, Pato, you can now be our veteran keystone.
But they've always looked at him like that because they gave him $10 million in new money this year.
It's crazy. Shout outs to getting it back. I love that.
So, like, good for him and all that, but it's like, it just comes off again like Zach is talking out of both sides of his mouth. It's like, it doesn't, you cannot sit here and tell me from this time last year that the plan for 2025 was to have a team of Pato O'Ward, Christian Lundgaard, and Nolan Siegel. When you tried and failed to get Alex Palou, you looked at David Malukas as plan B, and then you ended up with neither of them. You've ran through Teo Pourchaire and Callum Ilott, and now you've got Nolan Siegel in your car. I just, you cannot sit here and tell me that this was the plan. If it was, Zach Brown is a very good liar. because there is no way this was his intended plan.
The plan was to get Alex Palou in, send Felix Rosenquist out to wherever, and then when Palou decided I'm going to stay at Chip Ganassi instead, then it all blew up.
And this is the thing about it now that worries me, is that you mentioned it a minute ago. Where does Alex Rossi go from here? Because all of the other big major seats in IndyCar you would assume are taken. Penske are now not moving their team because New Garden's now tied down on a multiple-year extension.
The only way that changes is if they bring back a fourth car.
Yeah, or if Will Power retires, and neither of those look particularly likely.
Will Power was only retiring at the top of his game. If he chooses to, you are not justifying pushing that man out of performance reasons.
Not now. Chip Ganassi has their 5 cars. They've got their kingpins in Palou and Dixon. Armstrong and Simpson are paying for their own drives anyway, and they're affording to take a punt on Linus Lundqvist. And I don't think they're going to give up on him after just a single year.
Yeah,
so
that leaves Andretti, who just downscaled.
They've just gone down to 3 cars. Herter and Kirkwood have been excellent this season. And Ericsson, okay, a little bit underwhelming so far this season, but I don't think they're going to bail out on him after 1 year either. And I think the bridges were truly burned between him and Michael, and I can't see Michael bringing him back, quite frankly. Those are the seats you would want if you're an IndyCar driver. The obvious one for me is Rahal, because they're the best left of what's available.
Yeah, you're trading the two. And if Rahal Lanigan cannot get right with Alexander Rossi as the tip of the spear for ovals and super speedways, nobody will get you right.
Forget it. If you go in there, you might as well kiss the 500 goodbye because you're not winning it. Well, if you go into RLL, that's just the way they've been the last 5 years.
Ed Carpenter, which times are strange because I hate to say it, is Christian Rasmussen making Rinus VeeKay look like yesterday's news?
Rinus VeeKay is 18th in the championship right now. Rinus VeeKay has been woeful this year. I'm just sitting here going, how on earth has it gone so badly here? I feel so bad for that kid, honestly, because he's 24 years of age, and now all of a sudden Rasmussen's stolen his attention now because he just had his best career finish. He was 9th in Mid-Ohio this weekend, an excellent weekend. Qualified in 7th as well, almost made the fast 6. Rasmussen was like, that's the fast ginger kid we thought he was going to be. Hello. And Ed Carpenter's team is sorry at the moment. Meyershank looks full with Rosenquist and Malukas, because if Malukas is driving like
David
he is
Malukas
right now, he'll be fine.
Qualified 3rd in Mid-Ohio.
That was outrageous.
Right back on the job. Yes, his race turned sour from the first pit stop, but I like what I see. It's clear that he's not terminally damaged goods. But again, it doesn't look like there's any spot for him at Meyershank Racing, who are going to go back into sports cars. So what else does that leave? That leaves Dalecoin Racing, who really need outside investment. It leaves AJ Foyt Racing, who have the Penske Alliance, but again, don't have the means to keep things going with more than one car that is not paid for. Mm-hmm. And then there is Juncos Hollinger Racing as it's currently constructed, although part of me thinks that Ricardo Juncos is just going to take his ball and go home by the end of the year. And then it's going to leave Brad Hollinger with what the hell do I do with my team? Prima, do you want to merge up? That's the other thing that came up. It's just I don't know where people got the idea that Alexander Rossi driven for Prima before. He's not. It wouldn't be a bad... if you're Prima and you need an experienced guy to start off your IndyCar program the right way, Alexander Rossi's the guy you get. The
problem is that Tony Donahue was the same journalist that broke the Christian Lundgaard story in the first place, said that Prima's not interested.
Yeah, Prima's not interested. So they want Romain Grosjean to be that guy. Yes, it's already works for them.
This is wild to me. Alexander Rossi is by a mile the best driver on the board here. Comfortably. It's not even close.
He's an Indy 500 winner, championship runner-up.
Multiple race winner. he's comfortably, out of all the possible free agents on the board, Lundgaard was number one with a bullet, in my opinion. He's now gone. Alex Rossi now surprisingly is on the open market, and for me, he's
Daytona
the best driver.
24 Hours class winner.
Yeah, Alex Rossi is by a mile the best driver available, and Prima should be lining him up, in my opinion. But they're not. Apparently, they're talking to Logan Sargent. So, okay, like if you want to go down the road of F2 guy that was probably a little bit overmatched in F1, fine. It's worked before in this series. That's
like Logan was going to be an IndyCar before Williams came a calling, so it's not that far out of the realm of possibility. I don't know. I hope Rossi lands in a good spot, and I hope that if it's in a rougher spot than the one he's at right now, that he can help elevate whatever team he goes to.
That's the problem. It's for me, there's no good seats left, and the bad seats, can they afford to not take a pay driver? That's the problem, because the have-nots in IndyCar, the Dale Coynes, the Foyts, I'm not sure what Prima's financial budget is going to be going into IndyCar. I do not know. But
they have to look at this and think, right, we saw how this went with Carlin. Let's not do that.
You'd think, but here we are. So again, if a team that needs him for a paying seat can take him and they can afford to survive without the extra cash, then I hope they snap him up, because Alex Rossi is by a mile the best driver on the board. I just think it's a bad fit for whoever takes him, because it's just you're going to have a really good driver in Alex Rossi finishing 16th every week, and that's just unfortunate because Rossi's better than that. And that's coming from me, generational Alex Rossi hater. So what does that tell you? But as mentioned, IndyCar is back this weekend. It's a double header at Iowa, so 2 oval races for the price of 1. I think we're going to have a very different complexion of the championship after this Iowa weekend has been and done. I think Joseph Newgarden will probably win at least one of these 2 races. He is an absolute demon round Iowa. No driver has ever won round that place more than he has. He's made it his own in recent years, and it'd be hard pushed not to go into that weekend as favourite.
6 wins at Iowa, including a sweep of the weekend in 2023, 2 250-lap races, 1 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. And of course, this is also a significant moment because with NBC winding down this contract, Lee Diffie has already confirmed this is his last weekend of calling IndyCar races. And that makes me sad because
he's fantastic.
He's fantastic. The Olympics gig is great for it. Do not get me wrong, but I wish it could.
The pinnacle. No, I'll say this quickly on the way out. Lee Diffie is a wonderful commentator, a fantastic play-by-play man, and his greatest attribute, in my opinion, is his versatility, because he can do this for so many different sports. He does it in motocross, he does it in IndyCar, he's done it in track and field athletics, and he's excellent at all of them. He knows exactly what he's doing. He puts in the work to research. He does always bring the action. He always brings the enthusiasm and excitement wherever he goes, and IndyCar will be a little bit less fun without him in the commentary box. And if it is the last one, which it sounds like it is, then I'm gutted, because he, for me, is a wonderful commentator, and I think IndyCar will very badly miss him. And this is no disrespect to Kevin Lee, who will likely take his role. And James Hinchcliffe has done a fantastic job in the box alongside him. Less said about Townsend Bell, the better.
Yeah,
but
James Hinchcliffe has done a wonderful job babysitting Townsend Bell, just as T. Bell did for Paul Tracy back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah, it's cynical. Life is a circle. But yeah, it's going to be a real shame if he goes and look. By the rumors of it, it looks like it's very much going to be Fox's gain. So good for them if you're a NASCAR fan, I suppose. But yeah, if it is the end, then thank you, Lee Diffie, because you've been a wonderful servant to this series, and yeah, all the best at the Olympics, because that is the pinnacle of sporting gigs, quite frankly. So if the Olympics comes calling, you take that gig. So. So, the very best to Lee going forward on that one. Like I said, IndyCar back at Iowa this weekend. Our MotoGP episode will be recorded next week, so that'll be out middle of next week, some kind of time for the German Grand Prix, because Jorge Martin had another case of the dropsies. And that wasn't fun, as Francesco Bagnaia somehow has now won 5 out of the last 6 in MotoGP and has now retaken the championship lead. we'll talk a little bit about that on next week's show. But until then, I've been Dre Harrison. He's been RJ O'Connell. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Sayonara.
Later, y'all. Glory to corn.
Lungard is free. There are no strings on me.